Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Good evening. My name is Bernadette, and I'm a very grateful member of the Worldwide Fellowship of Al-Anon and Al-Anon family groups. Hi. And it's a true privilege to be here. It really is. And first I want to thank Dick, who's the chairman, and Barbara for inviting us to this and for their love and support over the years, and which I know will continue. And I love this place. Oh, what's not to love, right? But anyway, I'm in Al-Anon for a while. But, you know, I didn't start out that way. I started out like a little baby, the youngest of 16. And then by the time I was born, there were just 12 of us left. And I had one brother. His name was Anthony. And he was a great brother. I really have to say that my nephew and his wife are here. I really have to mention them, Edward and Eileen. Thank you for coming. I haven't seen them in 20 years, maybe 25 years. So it was really a treat. They live in Woodstock now, so that's great. I got to take this off because it makes too much noise and I use my hands a lot. Excuse me. Then anyway, my mother and father were both born in Italy and came here at a very early age. My mother was 15 when they got married, 16 when she had her first baby, and 42 when she had me. I have 9 children. I believe that's because I was taught how to be a mother, and I learned from the very best my own mother. Edward, who I spoke of, was the son of my oldest sister Rose. And there are just 3 of us left, Julie, myself, and Ernestine. And they're getting on in years, and it sort of scares me until somebody said to me, you know, so are you getting on in years. I thought, wow. That really hit me hard, you know. But I went to grammar school. I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm not recovering. I am a Roman Catholic, and I love it. And I went to grammar school, Catholic grammar school. I was going to be a nun, so I went to the juniorate of the Sisters of St. Joseph in Long Island, Brentwood. And in my 3rd year, they found out I was dating on weekends. Which I think Edward knew about all along anyway, and so they asked me to leave. And so I did, and went to St. Agnes's Academy, where I went to proms and dances and had a really good time. The biggest thing that happened during that time of my life was when I was 8 years old, my father died. And that was a pretty big thing to me because I was very close to him. I never remember him talking that much, but I was very close to him. And he was always good to me. And a lot of my nieces and nephews, I know that. But I had a pretty good family life. My mother brought us up well. Since my father had died when everybody was so young, they would all work and give her their allowance. And she would give them $5 to go for the week. You can see how long ago this was. But, you know, we all respected her a great deal. She's gone now, naturally. But anyway, I went on to date, and then I graduated from the high school, St. Agnes's Academy, and worked at the bank, the First National City Bank of New York. And it was there I was to meet this guy, Jimmy, who I got engaged to. That's not the guy who's the best guy in the world. But anyway, I got engaged. He went to the service, and I knew I couldn't be engaged anymore. His letters were horrible. I hated them. And so I gave my ring to my mother, and I said, I'm going to date, and I want you to know about it. And she said, okay. So I did. I dated. When he came back, I didn't write him a detailed letter, but when he came back, we had to go to a couple of weddings and things, and on that Wednesday after he came back, I told him we had to break up. So we broke up, and that Saturday, I went to, with my niece, to a bar. We decided we were going to go to this bar. We were not bar people. I was 18, 20 at this time. And we went to an ice cream parlor and drank Cokes all night, got up enough nerve, and we went to this bar 10 blocks away, Gallagher's, and walked through these wave of guys. It was very thrilling, I can tell you. It was great. And we went to sit in the back where everybody was going to dance. That's what we really went for, was to dance. We wanted to dance. And we both loved to dance. My niece Barbara, who I saw just a couple of weeks ago, and Geraldine and I were three. We were like three little sisters. We were very close in age, and they were my nieces. But we did everything together. But by this time, Barbara had gotten married and had a baby. So Geraldine was with me there, and we were with a couple of her friends. We were having a good time. And having a couple of drinks, I guess. I don't know. I'm not much of a drinker. I drink one and I begin to get dizzy, so I figure I shouldn't have any more. But I'm told that's what you're supposed to feel. So, I used to drive Bill crazy with that. So anyway, in walks this guy. He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, and he has a swagger to the way he walks. And he came over to our table, and I thought, wow, that's great. Well, he knew somebody at the table. So he said, I really feel like dancing. And he said, who shall I have? And he says, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Now he tells me I won. I could have doubted that for a little while there as things were going on. But I knew I cared about him a lot. And we danced, and 3.5 weeks later we eloped to Elton, Maryland. And I know I broke my mother's heart, a little Italian girl. They would say she was saving for my wedding, and we were going to be at this great place, and I broke her heart. And I know she forgave me, but it still hits me. It's wrong sometimes. But anyway, we eloped. She gave us a nice wedding. Now, at this time, Bill and I had gone out every night those 3 weeks that I knew him. I never remember him drinking that much. I never remember him drinking that much. Matter of fact, I could say I was drinking more than he was. And I was really not a good drinker. So, but he tells me later that what happened is he would go to the phone. We worked for the New York Journal-American. He also had, he was tall, he was dark, he was handsome. He worked for the New York Journal-American, and I later found out he had a powder blue convertible. What else is there, right? What else is there in life? The rest I could take care of. I was sure I could make our marriage right. Whatever was going to go wrong, but you see, nothing was going to go wrong because it was just going to be wonderful, And he was everything I ever dreamed of, and I don't ever really remember ever dreaming of the man of my dreams, but he was it at the time. And so we eloped. My mother gave us a good wedding. And I remember coming back before we got married in church. We were married 11 days, then we got married in church. We went to visit Bill's mother on the way back, and she was yelling and screaming, and she offered us tea, which we refused. Then we went over to my mother's house, and she kept looking and saying, why? Why? But why? But why? That's all she kept saying was why. I would have rather she slapped me in the face or something, but she didn't. And so she said, okay, now the only thing I ask is that you don't live together till you get married in church. So we went over to visit Bill's mother with my mother and my brother, and we walked in, and she says, I can't make the wedding. My mother said, I haven't given you a date yet. And she said, I can't make it anyway. And she said, they'll wait. And so she gave in, and we did. We got married. That night, there was a lot of drinking, as at most weddings. It was in my mother's house, a lot of drinking, a lot of fun. And then my mother-in-law went after me with a knife. I couldn't understand why. I didn't understand why. To this day, I don't really understand why she ever did that. But she did. And we talked about that at length. And I forgave her, she forgave me, and we got along very well. And so we had the wedding, and we went on our merry way. Now, I still didn't know Bill was drinking because he was working nights. I was working days, he was working nights, and would meet once in a while during the day. And at one point, my mother says to me, I think maybe you ought to stay home. And I said, why's that? She said, well, Bill is going to the racetrack a lot, meeting your brother-in-laws, and they're drinking and they're playing the horses. And I think you ought to just stay home. And I said, if you ever talk about my husband again, I would never want you to ever come in my home again. And so she never did, never spoke about him in a bad way again to me. She was really a good woman. She just didn't like to see her children hurt. So anyway, Bill and I started our married life, and we got a furnished apartment. Bill was working nights, I was working days, and Bill was coming home later and later in the morning and going in earlier and earlier in the, at night to go to work. And I had no idea that he drank. And somebody said to me once, "That's foolish. How can you not tell he was drinking?" Well, if he came home to get sober, how would I know if he was drinking? I mean, I had never been with anybody like that. I did not have alcoholism in my family, to my knowledge. So I had no idea of what to expect. So after that, so my family got a little money together, or somebody did anyway, I can't remember who, and we bought a little house. Can you imagine? It was $13,000 a house, a two-family house for $13,000. I mean, you can't even spit on a house for that now. But anyway, we bought this two-family house, and I got pregnant, and I was delighted. I was really happy, and so Bill did come home at night during the day once in a while. He took nights. He did. He really did. As I say, we had 9 children. He came home more than once. So anyway, So we bought this two-family house. We rented upstairs, and we were getting $95 up there, and we were paying $75 a month rent downstairs. And for some reason, we just couldn't keep up the payments. Now, I had nothing to do with money. Whenever I had money, I always gave it to Bill, because he went to college. He knew what to do with it, I mean, what did I know about that? I never took care of money in any way. And I thought he was doing a very good job because he kept telling me he was. He was putting money aside. There were things for this and there were and I believed him. I truly believed him. So after 14 months, I had my daughter Charlotte. And I mentioned my children by name because that's the only way I can tell at what time of my life I am, I mean, I can tell by the kids I had. So, because the oldest is 40 years older than the youngest one, so. No, I'm sorry, 14 years. 14 years. 14 years. Oh, I'm sorry, that makes me 150. But anyway, I'm sorry. You can tell I'm a little nervous. But anyway, we had Charlotte, and the first daughter we had, Judy, she loved Bill so much, and she would cry whenever she saw me, and I prayed for the next child to love me a lot. And then Charlotte came along and wouldn't let go of my neck, and I thought, whoa, I just think I'll just think about having a neutral one next time, so they love us both. So anyway, 14 months later she came, and I guess 18 months later we had our son Bill. At that time Bill decided perhaps we should sell this house in Floral Park, because he couldn't keep the payments up, the $95, and we were making $75. And he just couldn't keep the payments up. But he thought if we put it together, whatever that meant, if we put it together, he took me all the way out on Long Island. If you know Long Island, New York goes like this, and Queens is here, where I was born, and Long Island is way out, Deer Park, Hud's, a couple of little places. So we went out there, and we had our son Bill. But before we went out there, I remember we were running short on money, and I had gotten a lot of engagement gifts from my engagement party to this other guy, and I never gave back because they were all family gifts. So they said, I won't have another engagement party, that's all. So he said to me, I think it would be a good idea if you sold those things. If you sell these things, we can do something with that money. And I said, why don't you go out and sell? He said, well, they're your things. So like other times in my life, I said, okay, and I went out and I sold these things, well worth over $2,000. I got $200 for them. And when he saw that hot money in my hand, he said to me, you give me that $200 and tonight you'll have $2,000. And I believed him. And I gave it to him. And we had no money at night either. So, and at this time I still didn't know he was drinking. I didn't know what was going on because he was gone a lot, and he worked for the New York Journal American. And once in a while my mother would say, how are you and Bill getting along? And I said, we're getting along just fine, thank you. Everything is fine. So anyway, after a while, and then we were having our third child, William Jr., and he was born about 14 months later, and at that time Bill said, I think we should sell this house and move out on the island. So we did, and we went and stayed with my mother-in-law for a little while, and just a week or two, and then we went out to Long Island, and there I was really in isolation. Nobody lived out there that I knew at that time, and I didn't have a car. I didn't know how to drive. And it was bad. Billy, our son, was very sick. He was a very sickly baby. And he cried a lot. And he had a lot of rashes, and he had a lot of different things wrong with him. And I didn't know what was wrong. And at that time, there was no insurance. The doctors were, $5 every time you went or something like that. And going back a ways, it's 50-some-odd years. And Bill would be gone most of the time because he told me he was working. He was working extra shifts and over shifts and extra shifts and more shifts, and more shifts. I found out later he was going to Gallagher's, Cuckoo's, Tootie's, Angie's, I don't know, a whole bunch of places, those good places. And so we went out to Deer Park. No, we didn't go out to Deer Park. Yes, Billy was sick. We went to Deer Park, and then I got pregnant again for Larry. And I then had my Irish twins. They were 11 months apart. I didn't mind being them. I loved it. I loved having my kids. I loved it. It was so enjoyable. Maybe I wasn't paying that much attention, but I must have been paying some attention. I don't know. Somehow I think I was. I think I was paying attention. I did not know what was going on because he never drank at home. How lucky we are when people are not drinking at home and not bringing the bottles home, I feel very fortunate about that. I've heard some horror stories while I've been in Al-Anon about what can happen. You'll excuse me just 1 minute. I have to breathe. So I feel rather fortunate that Bill drank out, but when we got out to Deer Park and I was alone, he made a lot of friends out in Deer Park. I didn't make too many except the next door neighbor, who I thought was crazy because she had 6 kids. And there I went ahead to have 9. So, but I did make good friends with her, but Bill was gone most of the time. And, as I say, with his new friends now. He never played golf, so I was never a golf widow anyway. But, our life kept getting rougher and rougher, and we kept getting bills from places saying that they were going to turn the lights off. I would ask him what was going to happen, and he would tell me not to worry about it. And I'm not going to tell you what he did about it, because he'll tell you that in his story. But after a while, and Larry was born, and Bill says to me, I think it would be a great idea if we lived in with your mother. She has that basement, and we could live there. And I said, sure, I think you should ask her. And he said, no, you should ask her. It's your mother. So I asked my mother. And she said, of course, you can come. I didn't mind because I was going home. This is the house I grew up in. And I knew that no matter what happened, I would always have something to eat at my mother's house. So we did. We went to live at my mother's house. The kids were around in the cots and in cribs, and we were in cots. And if you've never slept behind an oil burner at night, you're sleeping and it's going slow, and all of a sudden, this reminded me of Jack, all of a sudden it goes poof, and you wake up, But again, I was happy. I was home. My kids were delirious. They could go up with their grandmother all the time. And Bill was out more and more. And he wasn't looking too good. He wasn't looking too good. And one day I'm ironing his suit. And in his suit I find $300 right in the pocket. And so I went up downstairs and I said, Bill, guess what I found? $300. And he said, oh, that's not mine. That's not mine. That belongs to a couple of my clients. Of course, I didn't know at this time he had lost his business either. It's amazing that I didn't know any of these things, but I never got any bills. He made sure he got everything when he was supposed to. He handled it very well, I thought, considering, if you consider that good. So he continued to drink, and he was gone more and more of the time. And now he started to come home drunk. He did. He would come home, and he would come home with a gash on his face. And one night he was out overnight, and I said, where were you? He said, don't get angry. I had a heart attack last night. I said, no kidding. And he said, yes, I was in the hospital in New York. I was in the hospital in New York City. And I said, really? I said, do you have the bill? So he'll tell you in his story what he did after that, So anyway, I think he began to know that something was going on, but there was nothing I could do. And I didn't try to do anything because I knew I was safe and my children were safe. And if he wanted to do whatever he had to do, I guess he could do it. I went to see a priest, and he said to me, go out, get your hair done, buy a dress, and go out with some of your friends. Well, I couldn't rub 2 nickels together. I didn't have them to rub together. So how could I possibly do that? So that was the priest. And then I went to the doctor. They learned nothing about alcoholism. I went to the doctor, and he said, there's nothing I can do, really. This was back in 1959, something like that. There's nothing I can tell you. I don't know what to tell you to do. So I just went back and, I did what I had to do, and knew that I would be taken care of, maybe if not by Bill, who really was still my hero. I was sure there was something wrong with him that could be fixed, but I knew there was nothing I could do about it. I had no idea what to do about it. I didn't tell my sisters about it. My mother didn't ask me. She knew what was going on. She was not stupid. She lived upstairs. She knew what was going on, but she never said a word. And one night, one of my children got very sick. And but that's really Bill's stuff. I'm going to let Bill tell the rest of that story. But one night, one of my daughters got sick, and I got a hold of Bill. And through that, and he'll tell you the rest of it, he called a psychiatrist and met the people in AA. And he went about a year. Well, I thought it was a year. He says now he went 3 months. And he said he didn't drink too much. That to me sounded all right, because I had no idea what AA was anyway. You didn't hear about it at that time at all. AA was the Bowery Bum, or the guy that lived in the corner down the street at the bar. So anyway, he's in the program now, okay? And I'm still getting along. My mother seems very happy that he's doing this now, so I'm happy for my mother, She doesn't say anything to me. And, God, I keep losing see, this is how I can tell I'm getting old. Oh, God, just a minute. So anyway, after he went to meetings, and after a while I said to his sponsor, how can I find out what's going on? This is the second time he came back. How can I find out what's going on? What's going on in his eyes? I see something in his eyes. And he said to me, come to a meeting some night. And I said, when can I come to a meeting? And he says, wait till he invites you. So that was in April, and in June he invited me to my first open AA meeting. And I went, and it was there I was to meet his sponsor's wife, Hattie. These wonderful 2 Jewish people. I love them. I love them still, and they're both gone. But she took me to my first Al-Anon meeting, and I cried a whole lot. I really cried a whole lot. I really didn't know what to think or what to say. What would they ask me? What did I owe them? And when they passed the basket, I felt terrible because I didn't have any money to put in. And they said, don't worry, your day will come. How can I repay you? Don't repay me. You repay me by working with somebody else in the program. So every week I went to my Al-Anon meeting. And I loved Al-Anon. I learned things. I learned that Al-Anon, alcoholism was a disease. A mental, spiritual, and physical, and that we are affected by it, and we enable people. Enable. I never heard that word, enable. You allow them to do things that they should do for themselves. Oh, did I do that all those years? I didn't know that, But yeah, enabling is doing for people what they should do for themselves. I have 2 sons in the program, and I'm grateful. One of them just celebrated his 7th anniversary. I was very proud of him. And I'm grateful I couldn't do for them, because they have found sobriety early in life. And we don't push it on them. We've been an AA and Al-Anon family for a long, long time, but none of them ever went to Alateen. They didn't want to do that, but they learned from us. They did learn from us. And Bill was sober, doing what he was sober, and I was doing what I was doing. After he was sober 7 months, I loved Hattie. Oh my God, she was great. And she stopped going to Al-Anon after a few years, and I could never understand why. Because the longer you're in, the longer I'm in, the more I get from it. The more I learn from it. And I don't know how they can turn around and not do that, but that's not me. And I called her anyway. Every week I called her because I loved her so much. So we moved down to Nashville after 7 months. I will say he asked his sponsor if he could move. Now, I told him a few weeks ago, maybe it was a year ago, did he remember that he never really asked me? You know? But I always hear them say, and you don't make any changes for a year, but I don't think they said that at that time. I'm not sure. I really don't remember. There are a lot of things they say now, there are quotes that they didn't say then. So anyway, we packed up and I was as happy as a lark just to get away. You know, we had our old Plymouth. The hood didn't go down, didn't tie down. The windshield wipers didn't work. The heater didn't work. But we were so happy. We were singing going down there. My oldest daughter was 5 and the youngest was maybe 1.5 or something like that. And we had a great time. And we went to Nashville, and that was where we grew up. They told us to go and make sure that Al-Anon and AA was strong there. And we did that. We made sure that AA was very strong there. And probably some of you knew Bobby Carpenter. She was my sponsor down in Nashville, Tennessee. And I love Bobby dearly. And her husband, I can't remember his name right now, but it doesn't matter. But she was important to me in my life. And it was there I grew. And you know, I know they're going to talk about the steps this week, and I accepted immediately that alcoholism was a disease and that I was powerless over alcohol. But I understood that I was insane, you know, and I had to turn my life over to God of my understanding. But turning that over was the hardest thing I ever did. Turning my life over to my higher power, whom I choose to call God, was the hardest thing I ever did. How can I take care of all these children where I have so much power and then turn my own power over to God, who I always believed in, but I just couldn't catch that. But I did finally. And I did the 3rd step, but I didn't do the 4th step until I came back to New York. So that was a good 7 years later. That didn't mean I didn't work the program. I love the program. Al-Anon is for anybody who wants to learn how to live with or without an alcoholic. I'm not telling anybody to stay or go. We're married 56 years. I think lately I've had thoughts of leaving, but years ago I never had thoughts of leaving. But I've heard that from a lot of older women, so don't worry about it. But anyway, I got very active no matter where I went. We moved from Nashville, then we moved to Ohio. I had 3 more children, Robert, Walter, and Daniel in Nashville. And then we moved to Ohio for a year. And I didn't get active there. I went to a couple of meetings, and unfortunately, I hope nobody's from Ohio, but unfortunately, they were very negative meetings. They talked about the alcoholic, and they talked about a lot of anger against them, and I couldn't deal with that. I was new in the program. So I decided to go to an open AA meeting with Bill once a week, and I felt like I never broke my strain there. Then after that, we came back to New York, and lo and behold, the Mamaroneck in New York was looking for somebody to chair their meetings, and I was looking for something to do in Al-Anon. And so we hit it off well, and I was a sponsor for chairman for about 6 months, more than I should have been, I know, but they needed me, and I was there. And I needed them more than they needed me. So it was there I did take my 4th step and then went on. And little by little, not fast, very slowly, I'm learning, and I'm still learning about the program. I don't have all the answers. I never will, you know, and I don't do anything perfectly. But I think my higher power has chosen myself and my husband to do this for some reason, you know. I was, being the youngest of 12, you can imagine how much I kept my mouth shut. So there's some reason that we were, and I anyway, was asked to do this. And maybe it's to share with everybody. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk about Lois. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.